life as far as support, and I feel like I can be a support to them. And it's a double-edged sword because it's tough. You gain these relationships and you care about people, and I think we both know the odds and the reality of relapse, and I see a lot of that, and that's tough to deal with. I think over time, I hate to use the word numb, but it's just, like I said, a reality, and it happens. But that's tough, but I do. Yeah, absolutely. I keep in touch with as many people as I can.
And it's hard when they start telling you one thing and, like, deep down, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and it's not our job to fix them. It's
Right.
not our job to call them liars. For me, as a friend, or someone who cares and wants to help somebody find, what I have, it's like, I want everybody to feel this way. I want everybody to have it. But there's nothing I can do to help somebody else. I mean, they have to do it themselves. And, a friend of mine still keeps calling, and he's like, hey, I'm going to call you later. And he's just not ready. I've told him, hey, bro, this is what, if I were you, I would do this. I'm not you. So you have to do this, and listen to me if you want. Don't listen to me. I can tell you how it's going to end, though. I can do that.
Right.
But he's just like, no. And, well, when you're ready, I mean, this is what it's going to take. You think you're at rock bottom now. You just keep waiting, because you're not there yet, buddy. You still have a license. You still have a car. Don't worry. That's going to be gone soon. He doesn't believe me. I don't know. But it's not my job to make him believe me either. I'm just going to be here for him when he does call and say, hey, my way didn't work. And I was just as stubborn, like I said earlier. I don't know if I couldn't put it away. I couldn't even fathom not drinking for the rest of my life. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do laundry? How am I going to mow the yard? Well, I don't mow the yard. I paid somebody. But, like, I mean, those chores, like, everything had to do with drinking. And your drug of choice was kind of a little bit of everything, but mainly it was opiates.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't discriminate on too much, but yeah, it was definitely, that was the drug of choice, would have been opiates for sure.
How old were you when you realized, oh shit, I got a problem?
I want to say 26. I'm about 26 years old, and I had been using for at least 4 to 5 years before I realized I had a problem. I was asked if I had a problem. My father had asked me because I had went in and, he was prescribed certain things, and so was my stepmother, and I went in and took all of what they had and came in one day with the bottle sitting on the table, and he was asking me, he wasn't mad, he wasn't angry. He said, do you have a problem? And I didn't really know what that meant at that point. I was really young, and I didn't know what addiction really looked like yet. But yeah, I did. Now thinking back, for sure, I was already, off, and I was physically and mentally dependent. So I would say when I knew that I needed to get help and needed to go to, a rehab, I was probably 26, 27 years old. So almost 15 years ago now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So you come home and they're like, you got a problem. And you're like, yeah, you got some more of those?
Right. That's my, right.
Like, hey, yeah.
Right, I need more.
Where are the rest
That's
of those?
my
Like, it's my problem right now.
Yep.
So that's when it first started kind of kicking in. Like, yeah, like maybe I do. And you probably start processing it. But how did you feel? Like, did you feel like you were a bad person, like you were an addict, or like you got tricked into it from the pharmaceutical companies, or do you feel like you were just wild ass?
Yeah, I think and I always was pretty wild as far as how I lived. And I, honestly, the first time I went to treatment, it wasn't really even necessarily because I was done or I was ready or I felt that it was because of the tolerance and because of my ex-girlfriend and my family who finally caught on to this problem. So I went to kind of get them off of my back and to show that I was going to do the right things, but I wasn't ready at that point either. So I that's a good question. I don't know that I thought that far into it at that young of an age and that early on in my addiction. So,
do you remember where you went?
I do. Yeah, I went to Brighton Hospital.
I've heard of Brighton. I never got a chance to visit there on my tour.
It's great. It's well, I mean, I wasn't necessarily ready or that serious about what I was going there for, but I mean, it was a good facility. They were good people, and I don't have anything negative to say about Brighton. I've been there a couple of times.
Well, I'm not trying to get you to say something negative. I'm just saying I've never been there, so that's cool. So it was comfortable. Were you nervous and scared, or how were you just like, man, I don't know what to expect, or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I guess I wasn't really nervous or scared. I just felt like defective. I felt like there was something wrong with me to where I had to go to a place like that, because in my mind I had this stigma about what rehab was. People I thought there was, me and my friends didn't go to rehab. It was for people that had really bad drug problems, and I wasn't that person in my mind at that point. Mm-hmm. So that's the only real struggle that I had. I just felt like I didn't belong there. Like I was better than rehab, which in all reality, I mean, look at me now and how many times I had to go. So, but yeah, that was my first experience. And again, I feel like I did it for other people, not myself. They had me on a DRT, a drug replacement therapy while I was in there. So I never withdrew. I was never sick while I was in there until I left, until I had to go home. So they'd send me back out after I'd been in there taking things to feel okay. And when I got out, not having that. And so you can imagine that the time from leaving treatment to my next use wasn't very long. I mean, it was pretty quick that I was back out using. It was very uncomfortable, and I started to I couldn't manage and live like that. So, yeah, I didn't have a good spurt of clean time coming out.
Do you think it would have been better for you? I mean, looking back, they say hindsight's, but would you have rather just them cut you off and you just would have been in there detoxing and you could have felt it there while at least you were in a safe environment?
Absolutely. And I almost feel like that's a disadvantage for anybody. Again, I don't know that at that point in time it would have made the world of a difference because of where my mind was and my thoughts already. So, like you said, hindsight, but yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's part of it.
Like maybe when you got out, it would have been maybe another day or two or a week before you went back. I mean, who knows? But I mean, yeah, obviously, if you weren't ready, the detoxing from it wasn't going to push you over the edge. And, oh, man, I'm never doing that again. It's like when people say to me, like, oh, yeah, I got to do that abuse. I'm like, yeah, that makes you real sick, huh? Yeah, violent. I'm like, well, what if I get violently sick when I drink anyway? Like, I mean, who cares? Like, that's not going to deter me. And then people are like, no, you've never tried it and you don't know. Like, you get, like, sick immediately. I'm like, you've never seen me drink, man. Like, you don't know. Like, my liver doesn't process alcohol the same. I mean, it's weird, but so death doesn't deter me, like doctors say, you drink again like that, your liver will seize up and you will die, like it's not playing around this time. Okay.
That's the insanity of it, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the fact that you just don't care and your addiction just takes over so much. And, people think, they see, or they call people, oh, that crackhead, he's just out there and he don't even care. No, he doesn't, because his brain, see, if you start looking at it scientifically and looking at what the brain does and how the brain acts, it's not normal. And that's what the drug does. It replaces normal things that we do to survive, shelter, food, water. That comes second, and that's primal. Like, that has to come first, and it takes over. Where that's where you look at, oh, that crackhead, because his brain is not right anymore. Like, at least while he's on that drug, and he can be fixed for sure. It just takes time for the brain to heal. And a friend of mine got into some trouble recently, and I talked to his lawyer, and I was like, man, he's not there. He does not have the brain of a person his age. Talk to him. Sounds like he's 13, 14 years old, and he acts like it too. Throws temper tantrums, but he's a great guy, man. He really is. And, I was trying to tell the lawyer that, and he's like, oh, it's insanity. And I'm like, no, we don't need an insanity plea. Some people are like, oh, I'll just plead insanity. No, you don't want to do that, because then they'll send you to the real nut house where they will keep you sedated for the rest of your life. And if you are fixed, you're just going to prison anyway. So, I mean, it's not, yeah, that's not anything anybody wants to do. But there are actual facts and there's actual evidence that, yeah, drugs do wreck your brain. And because someone can't think right, should they be accountable for saying bad things to people? I don't know. You know, it doesn't make it right, no, but you can't look at him and judge him like he is this just because that's what he is on the outside. You know, it's weird, man. It's going to take a long time. Well, unfortunately, for people to kind of start to understand that. I mean, I understand it. You probably understand it, George, and maybe people listening understand it. Maybe you don't. But to start kind of thinking that way, you know, it's like, you know, that's when they say, you know, this is a disease because our brain is affected. And it is, you know. I had a hard time thinking it was a disease too, and I was like, "It's not a disease." No, it is. Like, stuff's killing our brain.
Yeah,
it's like an illness. Yeah,
I'm with you. I've struggled with that for a very long time, and again, you know, I think I've been to treatment 5 times. This was the 5th time I went, and you know, that's something they'll tell you while you're in there, and I don't know, you know, I think of, you know, AIDS or things that people don't, I don't know, diabetes, but in all reality, I guess even with those diseases, it is something that is brought on by the person in some shape or form. And I know for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but it takes over. Yeah, I have to take that first drug or drink, but after that, I have zero control of what happens, and it's just that realistic. It just is.
It's like, for some reason, I think we all have seen this picture. It was taken, I believe, in Africa, of the guy who has the elephantitis nuts. He's like sitting on them. You know, you wouldn't kick that guy out of the hospital. You know, like, hey, well, he's got a disease.
Right.
Does he? Looks just fine to me. Just sitting on his nuts. Have you seen that picture, George?
I don't know that I have.
For real? Man, I swear everybody's seen that picture.
I don't know. Maybe.
That's a Google.
I would think that I would remember something like that, though.
Because I think I was just a child. See, it's again, this trauma, childhood trauma. And I remember seeing it. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, that dude's just sitting. And then there was like, is this nuts? And I was like, oh my God. Like, he was just sitting on him like it was a beanbag. I'm like, that's crazy.
Ouch.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. I didn't want that stuff. I didn't want elephantitis. No. Thank God. Addiction's not much better, though. But,
no. Right.
But yeah, so that's a little bit how the brain works in elephantitis pictures. I talked to a woman today, George. You know, we talk quite frequently about, you know, 217 recovery and the things that we got going on, the transportation. We're getting people to treatment, taking people home. I think it's crucial. And we started that in northern Michigan. It's going well, man. It really is. And I'm already like, okay, what's next? And so I called downstate because a lot of people I know from downstate will come up here, and some of them go back, you know, when they leave treatment. But others are like, you know, I'm going to try this sober living thing out up here, away from home, away from the drug houses that I know, away from stuff that I would pass on the way home every single day from work. And I won't have those things right in my face. Yeah, they're still here. They're in every community, but you don't know them, you know, and unless you're actively seeking them out, which can be scary in a new place. You don't know who's a cop,
right?
You know, and it's just, it's easier. So then I was like, there's nothing like downstate, you know, for like people from up here that go downstate, you know, maybe they want to get away from it. Because I met many people from up here that go to treatment up here, and then they get out, and one guy who, you know, said that. I was like, well, why don't you go to this place? I went to this place in Boyne City, and he's like, well, it's in my backyard, man. Like, I might as well just go to my mom's or, you know, my grandma's, whatever, you know, like.
Right.
So I'm like, man, so I looked up some stuff for downstate because Benton Harbor, man, is not a place I would want it to be. And again, there's drugs in Benton Harbor, there's drugs in Oklahoma, Watervliet, Hartford, Kalamazoo. There's drugs everywhere, man. But there was like funding opportunities and Southwest Michigan Behavioral Health, I've talked to them, and they were kind of interested in doing some things. But up here, if you own a home, to open like a sober living house, that next step after